Basically, when it comes to choosing a team or looking at teams or trying to decide what to use against who, the best thing to do is find a specific counter in PvE content. So even if we're looking at, say, a story map, if we're going to go there, like the Sandstorm's Ascent or Sandstorm Ascension or something like this, we want to look at what each unit has available to them. So Dark Breath, if you initiates combat, then he gets attack and res -5 debuffs on allies. Okay. Also chill defense, so that's a problem. And threaten attack and speed 2. Instant Lance, which denies follow-ups. And drag back. So here's why you want to look at skills. If we want to try to bait him and we don't get the kill, and he drags us back, he moves us from this space to this space, Joshua comes in, and we're now in his attack range. That's bad. That's real bad, because the Blade of Gehenna, well, first of all, he's got a massive speed stat and null follow-up. So that's really bad. Also, since we're in a cardinal direction, which is, north, south, east, west, foe can't counterattack. So he's going to get a double, most likely, against someone, considering it's going to inflict speed def -6 and neutralize the foe's bonuses. So unless you have a speed stat which is 53 or higher, 54 or higher, you're gonna get doubled. That's excluding buffs, by the way. And if you have a speed stat of 54 or higher, chances are you're gonna take a lot of damage from this Lance Cavalier. Furthermore, Instant Lance means you can't make a follow-up attack. So unless you have null follow-up as well, like Joshua here, this Cavalier is going to disable your follow-up. That's really bad. And then if you have high defense, Joshua can hurt you. If you have if you have high defense, the Screen Man Key can hurt you. If you have high res, Joshua can hurt you. Because there's usually a trade-off between defense and res. And there's not a single unit in the game who has high stats in speed, defense, and res, and still has good attack. Not a single one. Then you have Green Feud. So it's important to check your opponent's skills before you decide your own. Now, if it comes to planning with a pre-planned team, there are a few things you want to consider. The Holy Trinity in most games are, or in most RPGs like this, are DPS, tank, support. And our main DPS in that Jomko map was Tatiana and Hana. Our tank, of course, Henry. Our support, Marth, from Failsham and Drive Speed. Now, when you're looking through your list of heroes, you can designate your heroes with one of these titles, most likely. For example, Sharena here looks like she's more of a support unit, but she also has this technique which gives her speed and defense +5 when she's next to an ally. So you can double that up with attack bond, which gives attack defense +5, and attack speed bond, which gives attack speed +5. So she gets +10 to defense, speed, and attack anytime she's by an ally. Furthermore, we gave her Blue Flame, which boosts her damage by a pure 25 damage if she's adjacent to an ally. This makes her extremely viable in Arena. This makes her really potent as an attacker. It also makes her really beefy. 40 defense is really strong. 43 speed, also really strong. 60 attack is okay. Ideally, we'd want her to have Drive Res to support anyone else on the team who might be handling Res, or who might be a Res tank, because that's the one part of the game where she fails, or at least isn't as strong. 23 isn't a particularly high Res stat. If we compare it to a lot of the other Res stats we have in the game, 64 is one of our highest. So chances are she's not going to be, or if she can help out someone with a higher res stat, that would be really nice. Furthermore, if we look at our attack, you can see that 60 attack is nothing to sneeze at. She's going to be really strong if someone initiates combat when she's next to an ally. Now, that being said, that there is a trade-off. Sharena, with attack defense bond in her ace skill, that limits her options for 1-2 range attacks. And when I mean 1-2 range attacks, I mean the following. Sword, lances, axes, unless otherwise specified, are single range. If we talk about Nifl's Bite here, with the unit can counterattack regardless of foe's range title or description, that means she has 1-2 range. If we have someone like... where's Crom? Where is Archer Crom? Yeah, if we have someone like Crom here with Close Salvo, it says you can counterattack regardless of foe's range. That means he also has 1-2 attack range. 2 range initiating, and 1-2 range when defending. Same goes for Robin, and, either Robin, really. Expiration, you can counterattack regardless of foe's range. Same goes for Ryoma. Same goes for any unit you put moves like Distant Counter on. Such as... Where's Hawkeye? Where are you, Hawkeye? This is FE6. We're looking for FE7. Yeah. So I like to run Hawkeye with Distant Counter because of his very strong mixed bulk. I have Noontime on him, which helps him be a better tank. I have Mystic Boost on him, which also helps him be a better tank because it restores 6 HP after combat. And I have Attack's Smoke, which also helps him, you guessed it, be a better tank. And by sorting fighters into one of these 3 roles, you can start to have an idea of what makes a complete team. For the most part, your healers are always going to be support units. You can always put a dancer as a support unit, like Nils or Ninian. I know Olivia from Fire Emblem Awakening is a pretty good support unit as well, and she's free to play. Everyone's gotten Olivia. Who else? Azura, great option. Legendary Azura, incredible option. I like to run her with Hone Speed 4, because when you do Prayer Wheel, that gives a +7 to all stats. She is the best friend of Blade Tome users like Nino or Tharia or Odin. Nino's also a really good unit here because of Iris Tome. Typically on a blade tome, and I'll show you this. Typically on a blade tome, it comes with the slows special trigger status. So instead of having a moonbow at 2 count, it would be now at 3 count because of Grand Blade. With Iris Tome, you don't have that. And it's stronger, and you're going to want that on, like, really fast units. So now that we've talked about the different archetypes, your DPS, tank, and healer, there are further archetypes within those. You can have your speedy mages, you can have your dodge tanks, like, where's Long Hu? He's an Awakening, so he's a bit lower. Yeah. So with Long Hu, he has a speed stat of 48, so I put Repel on him. And what this does is it simulates dodging from the mainstream games, or the mainstay games, rather, the official games. So anytime... Basically, you subtract the speed stat, his speed versus the opponent's speed, and you multiply that difference by 4. That's how much damage is reduced from the opponent's combat. That's how much is subtracted from their damage, just flat, up to 40% damage reduction. And where's Chris from Fire Emblem 1? There she is. She has something similar called Spurn, which deals an extra 5 damage when the special triggers, so you want to put a quick special on her. Spear of Shadow also gives her special acceleration -1, which is great. So now that we've discussed dodge tanks, let's look at a few more. We've got some folks like Note and Dagger. These two have kind of function as both a support and a DPS. As you can see, very high speed, very high attack. She also has attack speed push, which further increases her speed and attack. That being said, her greatest asset here is probably the Skin Foxy, which grants Pathfinder. Now, the big thing about Pathfinder is that allows units crossing over her space to gain an extra space of movement. So what this means is if they were to have... and I'll show you this in Etherkeep. Where is... Okay, so notice that Triandra has 2 spaces of movement, and Hilda has 2 spaces of movement. Normally, Hector, the axe, would only have 1 space of movement, so he wouldn't be able to move over Note. However, when we're testing this defense, we see that Hector... Where's Note? Where'd Note go? I'm not allowed to use Note? That's weird. Okay. I'm not allowed to use Note here, I guess. Am I allowed to use Note here? Yes. Okay. That was weird. Sorry about that. Notice that Hector now has an extra space of movement. So he can move 1 space this way, 1 space this way, or 1, 2 spaces, 1, 2 spaces, or 1, 2 spaces. So you gain an extra gain an extra space of movement. This is particularly potent with Cavalier teams. So you have Lilna here, who now can cover all this range simply by having Note here. And the most messed up thing is that these effects stack. So if there was another Note here, Lilna would be able to attack this space as well, essentially pinning down your entire team. In Aether raids, she is definitely one of the more meta units, simply because high space usage or high control of space is a big part of the game. Also note that Bremamond and Claude are also two very big threats here. In fact, Claude and Lilna have approximately the same... No, they have pretty much the same area of attack. Area of influence, rather. So either you take a big hit from Lilna and her gifted magic against your res stat, or you take a big hit from Claude and his high attack stat. Which is a tough decision to make, even for folks like Hector here. Like, for instance, do this. Hector gets the kill, but now this entire team is pinned down. You can't do a whole lot here, especially since Claude already procced this ability Fallen Star, which inflicts gravity on your opponent. It's a reference to Fallen Star from Three Houses. It's really, it's really OP. So now the question is, what do you do from here? This is just one example of what to watch for when you're looking at your opponents. I guess one other thing we can talk about here is a brief rundown of skills. Now, if you're looking at different skills, or different skills you might see, you have an entire inheritability, or skill inheritance, or inherit skill rather, menu of inheritable items. Now, this is a rather extensive collection of weapons. And the best way to get a good sense of what each weapon does is to just read the description before each map. It's a little time-consuming, sure, but it's necessary. For instance, if your opponent has something like a pedal parasol and you don't know what that does, you're like, oh, okay, they got pedal parasol, what's so wrong with that? If you have any penalty on you at all, that's going to give your opponent a lot of extra stats. So if you have, if you're panicked, if you're slowed, if you have, if you're chilled, if you get hit by a chill skill, which I'll talk about in just a sec, that's going to give you some extra attack. Similarly, there are support items here. Where is the... Oh, that's right, I don't have Camilla. But there is a green support. The blue... What am I looking for here? Yeah, so if you have something like a fresh bouquet from Bridal Ninian, if you use it adjacent to an ally, grants speed +4 to unit and adjacent allies for 1 turn. Silver Goblet's one of my favorites. That gives defense and res +4 to allies within 2 spaces during combat against defense bow and magic or staff foes. So what you have here is a bit of a trade-off between damage for a support kind of weapon. And one kind of way I've used that is with, where is she? Dancer Renea. Now, the good thing about Renea here, Reminiscent Belle Renea, is she's available in the Grails menu. But if you give her the Silver Goblet, which gives defense and res +4 within 2 spaces, Distant Guard, if foe uses bow or dagger, grants defense res +4, and a Distant Guard Special Seal, which also gives that, you have +12 defense and res from bows, daggers, magics, or staves. And so that's why I have her paired up with Gangrel, which, if you recall in a previous video, gets very good bonuses from being solo. So what this means is, if you have her within 2 spaces of Gangrel, he gains attack and speed +1, and defense and res +13. For those of you who don't remember Gangrel's stats, where are you, Gangrel? You are from Awakening, so you're down here. That's pretty. It makes him pretty tanky. That gives him essentially 40. What is that? 49 res and 43 defense. That works really well with his Levin Dagger, which gives an extra 20% of units res. So you've got someone doing nearly 10 pure damage just from those buffs. It's really good. Plus you stack attack speed solo, +13 on him. So you've got +14 to attack and speed, and +13 to def and res. And if penalty's active on your foe, you get another 4 to all those stats. It's absolutely wild just how heavy you can make these characters. Like, he becomes just a killing machine. If we are talking about someone like Aversa, and using Aversa as a support, she has a move called Aversa's Knight, and that's her preference tome. That's not inheritable, you can't inherit that. This is her specific tome, and it kind of feeds into her use. If any foe's HP is less than hers, -3, and that foe's adjacent to another foe, they get all kinds of debuffs, and their bonuses become penalties. I like to use her a lot in Aether Raids, simply because she's going to get some buffs from being in Light Season. If you're in Light Season and you have Mythics on your team, she gains stats and HP.
What would you ask of me if I agreed to follow your every command?
Anyway, we're also going to give her a move that increases her HP. And if we were using her for Aether Raids, we'd probably also give her an HP Seal to give her an extra 3 HP as well, to really just crank up that HP, turn her into a debuffing machine, and really help her out with support. Additionally, to help with her support role, we gave her Attack Res Rain, which gives attack res -4 on foes within 2 spaces, and Wings of Mercy, which allows her to come to units in need of aid. One other thing we could do is, in her B skill, we could give her Chill Attack, which gives an extra attack -7 on the highest attack foe. I like to go a little bit back and forth. Wings of Mercy gives a bit more utility, whereas Chill Attack gives you strictly more kind of defensive prowess. In this case, she's set up for arena and not Aether Raids. So she has Wings of Mercy rather than Chill Attack. Who else can we talk about with a pretty good preference? We can talk about Yarn. I don't like talking about Yarn, actually. He's pay to play, and let's talk about Male Corn. So Male Corn I talk about as one of the best support units in the game, and part of that is due to the Yato here. So the Yato is one of the best support weapons in the game. If you're within 2 spaces of your support partner, it gives attack, defense, res, and speed +4 to that ally during combat. Additionally, if you're adjacent to your ally during combat, you get an extra, your support partner during combat, you get an extra +2 to all those stats. Or if you're 1 space away, you get +1 to all those stats. We also gave him Drive Defense because those defense buffs stack with his Yato stats. So that's the +10 defense, or +11 to 12, since this only comes into effect when you're 2 spaces away from your opponent, from your partner rather. We also gave him Speed and Res Link, which gives him more speed and more res. So the only thing he's missing here is more attack. But since his partner is Hawkeye, and Hawkeye's taking on the tank role anyway, we don't really care too much about his attack. Another big thing about Corrin is recall Chill Attack, and the fact that it hits the opponent with the highest attack stat. We want Corrin to have as high an attack stat as possible so that he actually gets hit by the chill instead of his support partner. That's why we have Fury on him. That gives him +3 defense, but it can also hit his speed, his defense, or his res. There are a couple dimensions to thinking when you put together a team. I guess above all, basic team building strategies: know your role, know your opponent, and adjust accordingly. When I'm working on building units, I'm not going to build them out too much. For instance, some of the most recently obtained units I have, such as Ignatz, I built him kind of in a support kind of role. He's got Wings of Mercy, he's got Defense Tactic. He's basically going to support folks who do res damage. Hanoka, I put Swordbreaker on her. I'm going to use her to fight sword foes. I'm not going to use her for too much else because her main things are in a support role to help infantry and flying units move adjacent to her, and to beat sword units. When it comes to folks like, who else do I kind of have a budget build on here? Yeah, Violent. When it comes to Violent, he has Smite and he has Lancebreaker, because we're going to have him exclusively fight Lance foes, because he has high attack, high defense, and he can fight other folks who have who use lances, which are going to hit your defense. Balthus. He's kind of got a bit of a support build to him. Speed defense link, reposition, close guard. and he's going to be there to support red mages or folks who might be under attack from, lances. Who else do we have, like, kind of a supportive build? Oh yeah, you're one of my favorite support builds. So just as we have the support build with Renee I showed you earlier, what we did was we had from some spare Ephemerma codes, we had a Fiddlestick Bow. And what that does is it grants defense and res +4 against sword, lance, attack, dragonstone, or beast foes. So any melee foe who attacks, you're going to get those buffs for. Additionally, we have those 2 more close guards for +12 against anyone who does melee. And we gave her attack defense link. And just because she's an archer and we had a spare Deadeye, I gave her Deadeye. So there are a bunch of ways to build units. Most of your units are going to be support units, by the way. Unless they have, like, very little support potential. Gatry here can function as a tank, but we also have more people to fit his role, and since he's plus defense, he's not going to be quite as effective. Since he's minus defense, rather, he's not going to be quite as effective as he would be. So the question is, would this Crafty Fighter go better on someone else? Would this Fortress Defense Res 3 go better on someone else? Would the Spirited Spear go better on someone else? And these are the decisions you gotta ask yourself when you decide if you're gonna build a unit or if you're gonna save their skills for fodder. Kalik is another fighter I like a whole bunch because of his ability to tank. Look at this mixed bulk. This mixed bulk is great. It's so good. I give him Rouse attack defense. It's going to boost his attack and defense. It's so good. Quick Riposte. Sturdy Stance, which has a special cooldown slow kind of technique, and it grants attack and defense when someone engages in a in a melee or a 1-2 range, but you're going to see the effects most from melee attacks. Then we gave him Pelagian Axe. So if he's running solo, and if the opponent is already debuffed, has a penalty on their stats, this is just going to make those stats even lower. So it makes him even tankier. He's a really tanky unit. He's gonna take a lot of hits. And then we gave him Drive Speed, just because he's not gonna, he has middling speed. As far as speed's concerned, we have units here who reach 51, 50 speed, and he's got, 33? He's not gonna be doubling a lot of folks. Getting the extra speed actually isn't going to help him a whole bunch. So why not give speed to someone who's really going to make use of that? Let's talk about some of these skills, the A skills, the B skills, and the C skills. We already know about the fact that there are different inheritable weapons. Oh, don't know. Well, we know that there are different inheritable assist skills. Rehabilitation, nudge, swaps, shoves, drawbacks, repositions. For most units, I feel like reposition or drawback is going to be the best call. If you're planning on using a unit in Aether Raids, Smite or Shove can work to kind of push your unit right into the fray of attack. Otherwise, drawback works pretty well on 2-range units like mages who would do better with protection. So they're pulling someone back, but they're still, in the back line. Reposition would help better for someone who either has Canto, so they can reposition someone out of danger and then skedaddle, or someone like Kalik who can reposition someone and then take some melee hits. Swap can also be used in the situation over reposition. I kind of like reposition a little more because you have... because it covers more ground, basically. There are some situations where swap's going to be better than reposition, but you really can't plan for those ahead of time. If you have someone who is like, a dedicated tank and someone else on your team who can draw back the person you're swapping out of danger, then swap might be a better call. Or if you're running like a team with like a lot of armor units and you want to have like, your axe unit in front instead of your sword unit, then swap might be useful. But I generally like reposition over swap. And it shows because I have reposition on all these units. And swap I have on just a few. When it comes to repositioning skills, that's kind of what I choose. When it comes to choosing special skills, if I want to help a tank stay alive who has a slaying weapon, I'm most likely going to choose Noontime over Soul. Soul could be nice, but the fact that it's 3-turn means it's gonna proc fewer times. If you have Noontime, then someone attacks into your unit, you attack back with Noontime. And then someone attacks into your unit, and if you have Quick Riposte, you attack back with Noontime. So it would work really well for folks with slaying weapons because they restore a lot of HP. That's pretty good. You don't get that same effect with Soul. Consider that with Noontime, you get 30% of the damage dealt twice. With Soul, you'd only proc it once and get 50%. That's 10% more HP in general that you just recover using Noontime. Same with Moonbow and Luna. Faster charge specials are generally superior to slower charge specials. You don't see a whole lot of folks running Ether anymore, except for armors who have Bold Fighter or Vengeful Fighter or Special Fighter or something that affects special cooldown. Because then it would go, opponent attacks, they attack, opponent attacks, and then they attack back and they proc Aether. Or they attack, opponent attacks back, they attack and they proc Aether. Glimmer and Astra, it's the same thing. You're going to see a lot of folks using Glimmer. You rarely see Astra. Gale Force is great on units which have high speed and can double. You're going to see this on a lot of... you're going to see this on Ellawood and Royalot because they have the Blazing Durandal, which allows them to attack into the foe, and if they can double, they get Gale Force. Because their preference weapon has special cooldown. I have Gale Force running on Lonku right now, because if it pairs with the Flashing Blade, and he wins the speed check, then Gale Force goes from 4 charges down to 2 charges. And if he can double, regardless on if the opponent can counterattack or not, that goes from 2 charges to 0 charges, just from him engaging. And then he gets another turn. so he can hit and run. Deadeye's a premium special. I like it on archer units I plan on using, and those two are Jamka and Leone. Uller comes with it in his stock kit. Crom comes with it in his stock kit. Xion also has it in his stock kit. Reprisal, I only like this on one unit in particular, and that's Kalik. And the reason for that is he's going to take small amounts of damage each time someone attacks. A fun fact is, this is actually the only special combination I found that can help him beat Fallen Edelgard. All the other ones either don't do enough damage or have too long cooldown charge. In this case, he's going to take sufficient enough damage that Reprisal is going to kill Fallen Edelgard. And that's pretty awesome. What else? Draconic Aura. I don't like Dragon Fang on anyone. Draconic Aura can be useful, but in general, I feel like you're going to get more out of Bonfire or Ignis. And part of the reason for that is Draconic Aura. Generally, if a special can do 15 points of damage, I consider that to be a good special or an optimal special in most cases. With Moonbow or Glimmer, it's a little different. Glimmer you want to use with folks who are doing large amounts of burst damage. So if you're going to be doing 50 damage, now you're doing 75. Or with Moonbow, if you're doing 12 points of damage and your opponent has high res, now you're going to be doing probably 24, 26 damage. And that's a lot. When we're talking about Draconic Aura, in order to hit that 15% threshold, you'd need what's 30%? Let's say 50 attack, which with all the ways to reduce attack, increase attack, and modify attack in this game, I don't particularly like. If you're going to be doing high amounts of attack, you're already going to be doing high amounts of attack. Ruptured Sky I like, though, because it scales off of your opponent's attack. So if your opponent already has high attack, you're going to be doing a lot of damage to them. If your opponent has really low attack, you're still probably going to be doing a lot of damage to them and receiving very little in return. So it works really well on folks like Gangrel. Bonfire. So with Bonfire, if you get someone with 40 defense, this does an extra 20 damage. It's absurd. In order to get that same kind of damage from Draconic Aura, they'd have to be doing well over 66 or 67 attack, which, if you're using Bonfire, you probably have really strong defense. So you don't need to worry about that. I personally like Ignis on only Henry because, he's going to be in the fight for a long time anyways. So let's just do as much damage as we can in one short burst from him. Plus his defense is obscene. Obscene. That's why I like Ignis over Bonfire on him specifically, and only him. You also have Blue Flame, which I already mentioned with Sharena. It's very good on units who stay adjacent to others. Otherwise, it's kind of crap and lackluster because it boosts your damage by 10 instead of 25 if you're just running solo. Iceberg is the same as Bonfire, except it scales off the res stat instead of the defense stat. So you're going to be using... Oh, very cool. So you're going to be using that if you've got high res. I'm going to be putting this on Julius or any of... Like, look at all these folks who have Iceberg. They've all got, like, over 30. Some have 40 res. It's disgusting. It's going to be doing a whole bunch of damage to some unsuspecting melee unit. You have these Rising Flame, Growing Flame, Blazing Flame series. These are kind of out of style. The one person it might work on is Lilina, but she has Gifted Magic anyway, which already procs for a lot of damage. And she has it at the start of every turn, thanks to Studied for Blaze, which has Times Pulse built into it. So, Blazing Flame, Growing Wind versus Blazing Wind, Growing Thunder, Blazing Thunder, Growing Light, Blazing Light. They all cover different, areas of damage. Blazing Light is kind of in a cross pattern. Blazing Thunder is in a strange T formation. Blazing Wind is kind of a square. Blazing Flame is hard to describe. It's that pattern's really hard to describe. You kind of have to really see a picture of it to really comprehend what it's doing there. It's it's a strange geometric kind of shape. There's a lot of lines involved. I don't like it a bunch. Escutcheon and Pavis. These are kind of out of fashion now because it reduces damage, sure, but really the only person I like it on right now is Est. And here's the reason for that. She's going to go in with the White Wing Spear. She's going to hit really hard. And then she's going to take some damage back. Her defense isn't fantastic, but since she has Escutcheon, she's going to take less damage than she originally would. Since she attacks twice using White Wing Spear, she has Escutcheon every time she does her little double attack, which is really good for her. Sacred Cowl and Aegis is kind of the same way. It's with 2 range instead of 1 range. As in it's when you're taking a bow, magic or staff damage, or dagger damage. The catch is that 2 range units can't use this, which is a little peculiar. That it's only melee units. Whatever. Miracle's nice. Generally, you want that on a unit I like Miracle best on dancers, like Azura, or Sylvia, or Micaiah, or Nils. but it can also work well on units like Leela, who are going to be getting into the action, who are going to be throwing the dagger and taking a lot of hits. She's going to double. Someone's going to attack back. Maybe there's a chance she's going to take more hits than she'd like to see because of her low bulk stats. In that case, I'd like to use Miracle. It's really niche, but I mostly like it on dancers, because your support dancer, they're not going to be in combat most of the time, so they're not going to be doing a lot of attacking. Imbue, Heavenly Light, and the Balm series are... Those are going to be for your staff users. The Balms give stats, which is nice. Heavenly Light restores 10 HP to all allies. Imbue gives 10 HP to an ally. The good thing about Imbue is it's a shorter cooldown than Heavenly Light. I think Heavenly Light's a little more useful. I don't really prefer one over the other for healers, and most of the time I'll just keep their stock healing kit. And that just about does it for specials. A skills are the following. So you have basic stat ups: HP, attack, speed, or defense, or res. Or combinations of the two. And I don't really need to get into those too much. They're really budget skills, and they're not gonna be... Even now, when you're looking at budget builds, they're not gonna be the most optimal. Fortress Defense, Fortress Res. Those are good on tanks, but typically you're gonna want Fortress Def Res. To bulk up their defense and res, and only doing 2% a 2-point hindrance to their attack. Attack's pretty crucial in this game, even for tanks, so this is alright. I have this on Henry, of course. It's also on Mirabilis because of her very strong defense stats. Moving on. We have Fury, which gives you 3 of each stat, but deals damage after combat. And that's pretty good for folks you want to use to soak attacks, or folks who have different skills that activate under certain thresholds. Some common combinations in the early meta included Fury Desperation or Fury Vantage, which procs when you're under 75%. Persecution Bow also kind of procs when you're under 100%. But outside of that, Fury also can allow units, as mentioned previously, to absorb chills that they normally wouldn't be able to. So if your main attacking unit has like 45 speed, and putting Fury on your unit would put them up to 46 speed, that unit gets the Fury, that unit gets the chill speed, and the one you're going to do the attacking with is still just standing there with a strong amount of speed, even though it was the second highest. Life and Death 4, you're going to be using this on units that are strictly player phase. They're going to engage, they're going to do a lot of damage, then they're going to get out of there, and they don't want to get hit. Because if they get hit, they're going to crumple. And you'll notice that this is on Selena, who has pretty awful defense stats. And you'll notice that it's on Wolf, who also has pretty shit defense stats. You're mostly gonna use this on 2-range units who are gonna be in hit and run situations. Deathblow's pretty good. You want this on units who use brave weapons, or units who have guaranteed doubles on player phase. So it's going to give you just a strict +6 or +8 attack, which is awesome. Personally, I put Deathblow 4 on Reinhardt because Dire Thunder means he attacks twice, so that's an extra 8 damage twice. Procs Moonbow. He's got good attack. He's gonna break lances. And chances are he's gonna be running on a team with Hone Cavalry, so he's gonna get buffed even more. He's gonna hit like a truck. And that's one of the most common uses of Deathblow 4 I know. Darting Blow, you want to put that on your fast units to make them faster. That's pretty much it. Don't worry about Armored Blow or Warding Blow, they don't really matter in the meta. Swift Sparrow. Swift Sparrow's okay. You're going to be putting this mostly on folks who are player phase, who you want to be doing a lot of attack with, but also could use a little more speed. So I have this on Reagan, or it came stock on Reagan, rather. I have this on Lanku, who is like all player phase here. And the reason for that is you want to do the hits, you want to get out. Also helps that his speed with this initiation goes up to 55, which works well with close call. So now anyone with 45 speed or lower is going to be doing 40% less damage per attack. And chances are they're only going to be doing one attack. Well, they will only be doing one attack because of the speed check. Because he's going to be faster. Sturdy Impact. Sturdy Impact is great on units who I call brawling units. You know how sometimes you see a boxing match and you got that guy kind of barrel chested. He's just kind of going in there, throwing haymakers left and right, just really trying to knock the guy's block off rather than using more of his footwork, using more trying to move about the ring. That's what I think of when I think of people who make best use of Sturdy Blow and Sturdy Impact. They're going to get in there. They're going to last a long time in battle. Simply because of their high attack, high defense. And part of that also comes from the fact that they're melee. Sturdy Impact comes stock on Tibarn. And the reason for that is Hawk King Claw gives him an auto double if the foe's HP is 100%. So he's going to attack twice no matter what, and he's not going to take a lot of damage. Plus, if he initiates on a melee unit, he attacks, the foe attacks, he attacks back, and if he has Heavy Blade here in the S slot, then he procs Gale Force. Because it goes from 5 to 3 to 2 to none, and then it procs, and then he flies out of danger. It's also on Legendary Dimitri, who's another like brawler type. He's gonna get in there, and he's already got high speed, so he's just gonna get in there, throw haymakers, and he doesn't care about taking damage because he's got that if unit speed is greater than foe speed, reduced damage kind of dodge ability. Which is pretty much how you want to use them. Of course I have it on Lanku because I have everything on Lanku. Mirror Impact is pretty much the same thing, but for 2 range units. I have it on Julia. I don't plan on putting it on anyone else. It's a little more niche. Steady Impact comes from Tana. And I don't know a lot of folks who would make use for this over, say, Sturdy Blow or Sturdy Impact. Yes, it increases your speed, but if you're doubling anyway, you'd probably want more attack. Or maybe if you just want to do hit and run, but don't want to do any lethal damage for whatever reason, this would be better. But other than that, I really don't see a reason for it. Then there's Swift Strike and Bracing Blow, which I can't find any real use for. Fierce Stance, Starting Stance, Steady Stance, and Warding Stance are all great for enemy phase units. So these are going to be your tanks or folks who want opponents to engage on them. They gain extra stats and they inflict special cooldown charge on the opponent. There's also Sturdy Stance and Mirror Stance and Steady Posture and Swift Stance and Bracing Stance. Unlike Steady Blow, Swift Blow, and Bracing Blow, I think Steady Posture, Swift Stance, and Bracing Stance are all very good skills for tanks because it gives you the speed to not get doubled and it gives you the extra defense or resistance that's going to help you be a better tank. And that seems pretty straightforward. I don't know if I need to go into much more detail there. Bracing Stance 3 especially, which comes on Mila, helps her really be a great tank. Especially if you double it up with a Bracing Stance Sacred Seal. So that gives you an extra 10 defense and res when an opponent initiates on you. You slow down their special cooldown charge, and she gets like 58 defense. So Bonfire is going to do a lot of damage when it procs. Like an extra 29 damage. That's really good. Alright. Fierce Breath. So the Breath series here grants a smaller buff when an opponent attacks into you, but it also increases your special cooldown charge. So instead of going from 4 to 3, your charge would go down from 4 to 2 anytime an attack is thrown. So in these cases, it may be prudent if you have Quick Riposte or if you're using a Breath skill on a faster unit to use Glacies over Iceberg or Ignis over Bonfire, simply because it's going to proc anyway, so you may as well do more damage. The special cooldown would go from 4 to 2, 2 to 0, and then it'd hit. Rather than going from 3 to 1, 1 to 0, and then hit. That's just an extra 30% damage that you're getting. So, yeah, that's the only situation where I feel Glacies would be better over Iceberg or Ignis over Bonfire, with the exception of Henry, who is a special case in every sense of the word. Don't worry about these Defiant skills, they suck. Moving on. Brazen skills. These are better than your Defiant skills in every sense of the word. So these Defiant skills, you can see where the idea was. The execution just isn't quite there. Since they have to compete with other skills like Fury, they have to compete with skills like Stance skill or a or a blow skill. These are less consistent, and even though they offer up more stats, you're rarely going to be in a situation where you're under 50% HP and an extra 7 amount of a given stat is going to make a huge difference. However, these brazen skills take the defiant skills a step further. So if you're under 80%, you get +7 to each stat. They're objectively better, than any of these defiant skills, and defiant skills are essentially power crept into oblivion. And yeah, you've got combinations of brazen attack speed, speed res, speed defense, defense res, and so forth. Triangle Adept. Triangle Adept is good if you have a unit that doesn't do a lot of damage and has a very specific role. For instance, Obero, I only want attacking red swords. That's it. That's going to be her entire use. And to that extent, red armored swords. That's her only use. That's all I want her doing. That's the only time she's going to be on the battlefield. I can't find any other use for her. That's the only reason she has TA. It can also work for Leon, who has a Raven Tome, gives a triangle advantage against colorless, and inflicts triangle disadvantage. So what he's going to do is he's going to be a dedicated dagger fighter. So a dagger user initiates combat on him. He takes minimal damage. He doubles against the dagger fighter, even though he has low speed, thanks to Dagger Breaker. More on that later. And he hits a lot of damage. I kind of want to give him a better skill than Vengeance, but I don't know. But I haven't done a lot of thought into what I'm going to give him. It's probably going to be Iceberg. Let's be real. It's probably going to be Iceberg. Close counter. It means if you have. It means if you're a 2-range unit, you can counterattack if a melee unit comes at you. It's good. Some units already have this built into their weapon, so it's not as useful as it was, but it's still good. Close reversal and close salvo do the same thing, except they add extra stats. Close salvo also deals 5% extra damage. Close foil is alright. It means if a physical type of if physical damage is applied to you, it gives attack and defense +5. But notice that it's not just melee, it also includes bow or dragon foes, bow or dagger foes rather. So this is more of a defensive skill or like an attack and defense buff than it is a strict counter, close counter or anything. But it still has that close counter ability within it. So it's okay. Did I give this to... Yeah, I gave this to Julius because even though he's not going to be... even though his defense is kind of low, I do like the fact that Loptus gives him big time like attack debuffs. So the fact that close foil is going to come in with even more attack debuffs in the form of a defense gain. And also this reduces the opponent's res, so adding more attack for Julius is going to make him that much stronger. and he's gonna nuke a whole bunch of people, I feel like, which is very nice. Distant counter works the opposite of close counter. If you have a melee unit, they can attack 2 range foes. And distant ward works the same as close foil, except it gives attack res +5, and the opponent can attack 2 range units. Close defense is really good because if an opponent engages in you with... This basically works the same as close guard, and it's very useful for tanky units. So you get an opponent who attacks in on you, you can defend against them better, especially with close defense 4, which neutralizes the foe's bonuses. Distant defense is the same counterpart, but for 2 range units. Your opponent attacks with a bow, but you nullify the bonuses, you get extra bulk, thanks to distant defense. Again, for another tanky unit, it's okay. It makes your tanky units tankier, which can help in some situations. Generally, I like the utility more of close skills or brazen skills because they have more use. And I mean, typically you want to use specific units for specific actions, but you know, if you can find a multiple use case for a unit, then do it. These shields neutralize effective bonuses. So you have weapons like the hammer, it's not called the Night Kneeler in this game, it's called the pole axe or anything like that, or bows. And those are going to be effective against different classes of units. And these defend against that. Not too much more to explain there. It's very useful because the effective bonus is 1.5 times damage. So, no, 1.5 times attack. So, that's like someone proccing Dragon Fang every time they're against you. It's bad. And it sucks. And these neutralize that. So it's nice. On some units. I don't use it a whole lot. It's pretty niche, and there is a sacred seal for Iod Shield, so you don't really need these. Heavy Blade is good. I like it better as a sacred seal because in the A slot it hits a lot of competition. Basically accelerates your special cooldown if your attack is greater than your foe's attack. One good way around this is giving yourself something like Fury or Brazen Attack, Defense, Brazen Attack Res, Swift Sparrow, something like that in your A slot, and then putting Heavy Blade in your Sacred Seal slot. So you get the attack stat buff, and you also get the special cooldown buff. Same thing can be said for Flashing Blade. Is Flashing Blade 4 or Heavy Blade 4 worth it? I don't think it is. And part of that is you're going to be getting those extra... Like, the +5 true damage is nice, but it's such a niche, like... It's like such a niche use that I can't think of too many units who would benefit from it specifically. The boost skills aren't incredible. They're remarkably inconsistent, and they're not going to be very useful in PvE content. They're not going to be very useful in PvP content. Because in PvE content, you've got all of these units with these absolutely inflated stat lines. In PvP content, your HP isn't always going to be like greater than your foe's HP plus 3. That's it's just too inconsistent, and there are more consistent skills that are just wasted. The Bond series, these are interesting skills because they rely on very specific positioning, but they can do really good things for your unit. Like Crom, his bonds give him strength. Just checking to see if I'm still recording. I am. Good. Okay. I would have been pissed if I recorded all this and it got lost. So if you're adjacent to an ally, it grants you good skills. Good buffs. These are alright. Generally, Unity is better, the Unity skills, because those have a less restrictive, if units within 2 spaces of an ally grants these bonuses. And this is a little difficult, but if the unit is inflicted with a penalty, grants bonuses to the attacker's speed equal to the current penalty on each of those stats times 2. So that's saying, if you have a -7 penalty to attack, you gain plus 14 attack, so that counteracts the -7 to a +7, and then you add that attack speed, and then you add that extra 5 from the attack speed plus 5 to give you 12. And it calculates each stat bonus independently. It's good. It's not incredible, but it's good. Attack speed push. This is good if you want to use a unit with any of those B skills that synergize well with Fury, but your unit doesn't specifically benefit from all the stats you get from Fury. So, for instance, if you have a unit who has high attack and speed, but real shit like defense and res, you're not going to get a lot of benefits from Fury for a couple reasons. First of all, it's only going to give you, depending on your level of Fury, 3 to 4 stats in each different category. But you're also not going to make a lot of use of the def and res that you would be getting. So you can kind of look at this attack speed push skill as very similar to Fury, but only for attack and speed. And the trade-off is that attack and speed do get more stats, and you get more recoil, which means you could trigger Desperation or Vantage easier. And it's like that for all the pushes. Attack speed solo doesn't need a whole lot of explanation here. If your unit isn't adjacent to an ally, it grants stats. That's pretty good. Nothing too much to talk about there. It can be really lethal on certain units like Gangrel. And it's a little easier to get this kind of condition than some of the others we discussed, such as attack speed bond. We're going to run into these dual skills. So what this means is it gives you HP, and it gives you higher BST totals in Arena. You don't have to worry about these just yet if you're starting out. I'll probably have a guide in Arena soon, but you want to hold on to these for a bit. Because they could be valuable later in your Fire Emblem Heroes career, or something like that. So just hold on to them for now. We'll get to those later. They're not going to give you any practical benefits in combat, so yeah. And you have them for flying units, you have them for infantry units, cavalry units. You don't have them for armor units. Sorcery Blade is a nice gimmick. Again, I don't think it's particularly practical. It's neat, but I don't really see it having a lot of practical use from unit to unit. Bonus Doubler could be nice. Again, it faces a lot of competition in the A slot, so I don't know. These ARO and ARD skills have a lot of... They're really niche for Aether Raids, but they can give you some really good buffs in Aether Raids just in general. On offense or on defense, either way. We'll talk about those when we talk about Aether Raids. Again, they're pretty premium. It could help you further in your career. Hold on to them for now. We'll get back to them. Attack speed form. If you've got friends near you, you get more stats. Up to +7. They're alright. They're not awful. And they also come in Sacred Seal, and they stack. So that's... It's nice. And it kind of works as the inverse of like solo skills, kind of. They're somewhere between solo skills and bond skills, in that you don't have to be completely not adjacent to allies, but you also don't have to be solo. But you gain stats based on your position relative to your allies. It's inconsistent, and to be honest, I don't like it as much as some of the more consistent skills, like solo skills. I kind of don't like it as much as brazen skills either, because it requires you to move your units in a very particular formation, such that you always have 2 units, 2 to 3 units, like within 2 spaces of a unit. And if you're in a corner, this can be difficult. If you're in a position where one of your units might be left hanging and sniped by an opponent, it's not as useful. So they're good, they're not great. There's some situations where they may be more useful than others. You could probably double them up with an Owl Tome and get a lot of benefit from them, but I don't know. They just aren't as consistent as other skills. Shield Session only comes on 1 unit. Really incredibly inconsistent. Wouldn't recommend foddering it. It's neat. It's neat, but I don't know. Catch skills. Catch skills are really good. So if your foe's HP is 100%, or penalty is active on the foe, you get extra stats. And if both are true, then you get even more stats. And those are really good in Aether Raids, and those could be really good against PvE content. They're incredibly premium, so you only really want to put them on units that you're absolutely sure can benefit. Ideals. So let's go, yeah. So at the start of combat, if your HP is 100% or bonus is active, it gives you stats, and it's basically the opposite of catch. So whereas you'd want your opponent to be at 100% and with a penalty for the stats, you want to be at 100% and a bonus for the stats. It's pretty good. You're not going to be at 100% HP for a lot of the match, unless you have like Mystic Boost or anything like that. So these work well on tanks. I won't recommend them on hit and run units, won't recommend them on DPS. Wouldn't really recommend them on supports. So they're not as good as they seem. Catch is probably going to be a little bit better because if you're facing a lot of units, they're more likely going to be at 100% HP than you are. Unless you have good supports who can do good staff work. That's about it for the ace skills, I believe. Yes. Oh boy. How long? What time is it? Okay. Oh my god, I've been doing this for over an hour. Okay, I gotta stop. B and C skills coming soon. Oh, this is longer than I expected. Yeah, I gotta get to work. I'll see you folks later. Take care.